was excited to see this because I read this book. And I thought, hey, they've turned it into a movie so I can sit there and go, well, the book was better. Love when people say that. I'm talking about Michael Medved's best-selling book is now a movie. Joe, we're going to see something with the trailers. Johnny Carson would say, you leave a trailer or something?
We do, yes.
Watch on the screen.
I came to persuade you to avoid
American
these
miracle.
dangers.
We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal.
If our union is to hold together, something must be done.
He will become founder of a mighty empire.
The fate of unborn millions now depends under God upon the conduct and courage of this army.
Various founders talked about this providential experiment that God had ordained and intervened at this unique moment in American history to make all of this happen.
Most of them believed that there were no accidents in history.
That hope for liberty was the light that under God, he would lead them.
All eyes are open or opening to the rights of man.
Am I all mankind?
We have been assured, sir, in the sacred writings, that except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it.
It cannot be denied that with America and in America, a new era commences in human affairs.
America is something that I hold in my heart.
Americans of today should regain our bearings, that our nation is no accident.
Michael Medved, my good friend. So as a movie reviewer, what do you think of your own movie?
I think it's terrific because it was true to the author's vision.
Oh, excellent. The basic premise, which is not just basic, but absolutely amazing, that God's hand was in the creation of America. And if somebody goes, prove it. And then Michael Medved goes, okay, here's my first book. Here's my second book. And it's all there.
It is. And it was all there in the beliefs of the founders. As the founders were very different in terms of their religious outlook. There were some founders who were deists like Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin. And there were others who were very devout, one would say today, evangelical Christians. But what they had in common was that sense of God's intervention in their behalf. And in fact, when George Washington was first elected president, he was our first president, he gave an inaugural address in which he talked about our gratitude to the invisible hand that managed their affairs and helped bring this country into being. And I thought for a while, okay, I'll call the movie and the book The Invisible Hand, but that sounds like a horror movie. And it's not that. It is the American miracle. And the fact is that there's so many coincidences. There's so many things that just happened in our behalf. A pattern of happy accidents, a pattern of coincidences, it's still a pattern. And that's what I believe.
Here's the one I love is the treaty that was going to end the war between the U.S. and Mexico. Polk didn't want it, but somebody went down there, you'll know who it was, to sign the treaty.
Nicholas Trist, who was married to Thomas Jefferson's granddaughter.
Right. So he goes down there. Polk doesn't want it signed. There we go. The treaty's ended, and that's basically going to stop the war between the U.S. and Mexico and also give us California. And then what happened just 3 days before that treaty was signed?
Gold was discovered. And of course, no one knew it because in 1848, you don't have any kind of means of rapid transmission. And the discovery of gold in California, first of all, it meant that there were 300,000 people who came out looking for gold in the first year after the discovery of gold. And it also gave America a tremendous advantage because we had all the gold that could eventually end up at Fort Knox. We became the most gold-rich country in the world. And the fact that occurred at the same time that Nicholas Trist was disobeying President Polk and negotiating this deal with Mexico, it all fits together much too neatly.
So people, okay, there you go. That's one. But I know you said before, I've read you had said that, okay, yeah, it's just a pattern. Well, a pattern means there's something obviously happening there. Tell the story about the cigars and the Battle of Antietam. There's another crazy example. If you believe in God, you think he's got some evidence that he's involved in which way he wants this country to develop. The cigar story is wild.
It is. And I should be, just to no misleading advertising. This is not in the American Miracle movie because it happens later.
Yes.
It happens in the middle of the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln stuns his cabinet. He draws them together. And basically, his cabinet meetings were not like cabinet meetings we have right now with this president. They're different. And he makes an announcement to the guys sitting around the table, I'm going to free the slaves. And William Henry Seward, the Secretary of State, says, you can't do that. We haven't won a victory. We've had loss after loss after loss. And Lincoln says, you're right. And I'm going to put the Emancipation Proclamation in the drawer and wait till there's an American victory. And then next thing that happens is Robert E. Lee and Jefferson Davis decide they're going to invade the North and come into Maryland, which was allied with the North. It was part of the Union, but it was a slave state. And the climactic battle that turned Lee away was a battle of Antietam, the Battle of Sharpsburg, as it's called in the Confederate terms. And what happened is the Union Army was marching to intercept Robert E. Lee to prevent him from capturing Washington and Philadelphia and winning the war for the South. They were camped near Frederick, Maryland, and lying down in a field. And they built a little fire to make coffee because there's soldiers marching. And somebody lay down on the grass, and there was a package of stuff. And he picked it up, unwrapped it, tore the paper, and there were 3 cigars. And they were really good cigars. And he then starts looking for a light to light the cigar. So he says, wait, there's something written here. It was General Order number 183. It was the complete Confederate battle plan, without which the turn of the battle would be different. And then when they win the Battle of Antietam, turn Lee's invasion back. And then that January, this was September 17th, Lincoln issues the Emancipation Proclamation. He says, now God has sent me the sign. We have the victory we needed. And the world's changed.
More evidence of something like that. So what happens on Palm Sunday, right? On Palm Sunday we have Abraham.
The surrender at Appomattox.
Right. So the war is over. That's on a Sunday. So then on Good Friday, Lincoln is assassinated.
Lincoln is shot. And Lincoln is killed. And here's the amazing thing. It wasn't supposed to be just Lincoln. There was also supposed to be an assassination of the vice president, Andrew Johnson, and the Secretary of State. The guy, Azarat, who was supposed to kill the vice president, got drunk.
Yes.
And it was, he got hanged anyway. But in any event, Lewis Payne went after Secretary Seward, key member of the cabinet. And he stabbed him multiple times in the jugular vein. And he had been a trained killer. He was a veteran of the Confederate Army. And somehow this old man survived. Why? Because he had just had a carriage accident where he almost broke his neck. And they had strapped a metal brace around his neck with canvas, and without which he surely would have died. And it's because of that that Putin lost the Cold War. And Putin said so. Now, what do I mean? Because William A. Seward
Park, Sword's Folly in Alaska.
The guy, he got Alaska, right. And Putin is obsessed with the idea that we cheated him out of Alaska. It should be his inheritance because it was American Russia.
Yeah.
That was what it was before. But again, a remarkable bit of good luck. And here's the other thing. There's a little bit more.
Yeah.
William H. Seward, when he was negotiating this deal to win Alaska, he got 3 other little specks of land based upon the Bat Guano Act. And did you know about this?
I didn't know this one.
No, there were 3 specks of land that changed the world. The Midway Islands.
Mm-hmm.
And without the Midway Islands becoming part of America, which Seward wrote down and did that deal while he was negotiating for Alaska, then the Battle of Midway, which is the 6-minute miracle where they ended up sinking 4 Japanese aircraft carriers 6 months after Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
And winning the war.
I think it's a quote I saw from you one time to Otto von Bismarck, the famous German statesman, right? And he had said something like, the good Lord looks after, and then he listed all the different things that the good Lord looks after.
Looks after lost dogs.
Yes.
Drunkards.
That's it.
Lost children, and the United States of America.
So when anybody, here's the thing, if Americans are, I think 84% at 2 years ago believed in God, it's down to 81%. 1970, 90% of Americans were Christian. They expect that number to go to about 34% will be Christian by 2050 or something like that. So it's a declining religion as the Muslim religion increases through higher birth rate. Is America, are we too lost to accept this entire concept that you're presenting in this movie?
See, I don't think so. I think we're too negative in teaching our history. I mean, basically, when people look back at where America comes from, what America is, they tend to feel guilt or grievance. Either I'm feel guilty because of what my country has done to other people, or I feel a grievance because my country hasn't given me enough. We are so fortunate to live here. And that's one of the themes. And when people ask, well, what do you hope you accomplish with this movie? I hope that more people can use gratitude to replace grievance and guilt, and to understand that, we've talked about this before, John. My parents come from very difficult circumstances. My dad's parents were in Ukraine, and they were separated for 10 years by World War I and the Russian Revolution and the Russian Civil War. And after being apart for 10 years, they had lost 6 children in Ukraine where they lived. And my grandmother finally was able to take the boat, come to America, and soon she started feeling terribly sick and was very worried that she wasn't going to survive. She went to a doctor, which is a big deal when you're poor. My grandfather was a barrel maker. And she came in, she was in tears. And the doctor said, don't cry, don't cry. She said, I know it's a tumor, right? He says, no, it's a baby. She was 50, and it was my father. And she didn't believe it. She said, it's not possible for me to have a baby at this point in my life. He says, your name is Sarah, isn't it?
Oh.
Which is the biblical story.
Sure.
And that was my dad. And I am sure that there are Curley stories from your family and from everybody's family of how, Willy Wonka gets the golden ticket, right? They're trying to get the golden ticket for the chocolate factory. We won the golden ticket.
Yeah, we did.
We're born here. We're Americans. And that kind of gratitude, I think, as we're coming up to the 4th of July and to Father's Day. And that's something about George Washington. George Washington is the big star of this movie. And the guy we have playing George Washington is phenomenal. He looks just like him. And he, for almost 30 years, has been playing George Washington at Mount Vernon for people who tour George Washington's home.
Do you think does George Washington look better than you did when you were George Washington when you were 10 years old and you went trick-or-treating? That's what Michael Medved is. He was George Washington for his first Halloween costume at 10 years old.
I was 6.
I was 6.
Yes, and no, I was not a convincing George Washington. Great thing about Daniel Schiffer, who plays George Washington, is he's 6'3", which is the right height.
Yeah,
as George Washington was. But it's also, and it's something I've been feeling particularly because of this film coming out, and we had a showing. The debut of the film was at the Kennedy Center, and we had a number of the members of the cast who came in full costume, and George Washington accomplished everything in life. I mean, he was the father of the Constitution. He won the victory in the Revolutionary War. He's a 2-term president, beloved by anybody, elected twice unanimously by the Electoral College. But he never had children. Martha was a widow, and so he always wanted children of his own. Never happened.
Yeah.
And so what I think, and my father told me this, he said, he's the father of our country. And so you're just as much a descendant of George Washington as anybody. Even if you don't look like him when you're 6 years old, marching around with a cocked hat.
I don't know if that would get you extra candy, but it's certainly your love for this country shows not only in all the work that you continue to do, but of course at michaelmedved.com, all the years that I enjoyed listening to you over there on KTTH. And I'm going to make sure that I am there in that theater to watch The American Miracle. Michael Medved, thanks for your continued work and love of this country.